Hi and welcome to State of the Nation, New Zealand. Let's talk about firearms licenses, and in particular, a document that surfaced in a select committee hearing last week. Well, that's been a bit of a bombshell in the firearms community. But to understand it, you need to know a little bit more about how firearms licenses work here in New Zealand, and then you'll appreciate the gravity of what this document brings. So to get a firearms license here, you apply to the police. They will check your criminal record, they will interview you, they will check your home for security, they'll interview your spouse, and they'll interview a couple of referees. Depending on when you went through the system, those referees may or may not have to have been relatives. So there is a fairly involved and often lengthy process to get your firearms license, after which the police will declare that yes, you are fit and proper to own and use firearms. So this document that surfaced, this is a police mail order authority, and it is for the Christchurch shooter. There's a couple of really important things that this brings up. Firstly, it's got the date of expiry of the shooter's license. And we've previously been, suggested to that he got his license sometime in November. Well, that's increasing the distance from when he arrived in the country to when he was granted a firearms license. But we can see from this document that it was actually the 19th of September, some 5 weeks after he arrived in the country, with no friends, no family, and no history. So somehow in that 5 weeks, police vetted this guy. They decided that he was fit and proper to own firearms, and apparently his referees knew him only from online forums, not in person. That's crazy. How did this happen? Also, he was allowed to apply in Waikato. He lives down the bottom of the South Island. What is he doing applying in Waikato? It's because the Prime Minister, she decided that, well, it's okay for you to apply in a district other than the one you live in. I don't understand the rationale for this, and it's allowed him to slip through, and the police have given this guy a license. And the really terrible thing from that is that it's called into question the licenses of every other firearms user in New Zealand. The police are saying you can't trust firearms licenses because, well, we gave a terrorist a firearms license. It's not a negligence on part of the community. The community has done nothing wrong here. In fact, the community reported suspicious behaviour to the police around the Christchurch shooter and that club that he was at. And nothing was done. The police had ample opportunity to vet this guy, vet him properly, follow up on complaints, and nothing happened. And we all know the result. It's crazy, and it's not the fault of the community. It seems that the police have been systematically demolishing the licensing system over the last few years. The number of firearms officers has gone down. They increased the workload. They haven't got the time to vet all of these people with the reduced number of staff. The police even wanted to get rid of all of those arms officers and centralise everything in Kapiti. How would that work? Centering in Kapiti and remotely administering firearms licenses, getting rid of the arms officers that have face-to-face contact with license holders. There's been a systematic decline in the priority of keeping us safe when it comes to firearms licensing. It's been let go badly, and it's not the community's fault. But does the community get any credit for its part in reporting the shooter? No, it gets vilified. The police come after shooters saying they can't be trusted. Everyone with a firearms license, they need to have their guns taken away. We need to strip everything. We need to skip the democratic process, and we need to start banning everything. Instead of looking at what went wrong and who went wrong, it's an attack on the community from all sides. The other thing that this document brings up is also a bit shocking. The mail order form is for 2,320 rounds of ammunition. This is to a guy who's been in the country a couple of months. Now, when you order online or by mail, you can't just make an order and get a firearm or ammunition shipped to your door. The dealer needs to cite your license. So when you're ordering online, you need to go to the police. You fill in a mail order form, you get everything checked by them, and they'll authorize it. That form gets sent to the dealer, who will then ship you your items. So the Christchurch shooter took an application to the police for over 2,000 rounds of ammunition. He's been in the country just a few months, and it gets approved. What's going on here? No checks, no balances, no real consideration for what's going on. And the net result is we need more restrictions against the firearms community. There's been no word about fixing the failures in licensing that allowed Tarrant to get a license. There's been no culpability on behalf of police, but it looks like they are in a seriously bad position as a result of all of this. The decline in licensing, granting it to a terrorist, allowing thousands of rounds of ammo to be bought with their approval. It just doesn't add up. This is not the New Zealand that I grew up in. This is not the New Zealand that I want my children to grow up in. This is not our New Zealand. This is hopefully not your New Zealand. We need to be sensible about how we move forward with this. Banning everything under the sun and going after a particular group of society who did nothing wrong, that's not going to fix things. What will you say when you've banned all of this and it happens again? Because criminals, they're not handing their guns in. It's not going to fix that problem. What will you say when it happens again? New Zealand doesn't have a firearms problem. New Zealand has a competence problem. We need to fix that competence and everything else will fall into place. Stop vilifying firearms owners. Stop vilifying farmers. Stop vilifying anybody that suits your political agenda. Find out the real information. Talk to your neighbour. Talk to your community. Be a New Zealander. Don't sit on the sidelines complaining and trying to drag everybody down. Let's make New Zealand a place we can be proud of, a place we can love. Because a lot of people, they don't love New Zealand right now. New Zealand is looking like the start of a police state to many people. We have raids on people's homes. We have firearms being pointed at our children. We have armed response teams for the police, somehow justified by needing safety. The only unsafe ones are the police. They've created some seriously bad situations. The only people that have training accidents at the firearms ranges are police. Our clubs, our ranges are very safe, but you don't know. You've never heard about that because it's never been a problem. Not until the police gave a firearms license to a terrorist.